don't know why that when she said Neil Coleman, she looked back up there just to see if the anus was still on screen. Terrible, terrible individual. Thank you very much, Sabrina. Fellow geeks. As geeks, we take pride in having in passions that fly in the face of conventional cool. Ow, that is actually getting in my eyes a bit. We like the strange, we like the unusual, we like the oddball. Now, one of my particular forms of my many geekeries, geekitude, geekiality, however you want to call it, is gardening. So, I've been gardening since I was about yay high, too small even to actually hold a trowel or a fork or anything like that. And what I'd like to tell you a little bit more about today are some of the plants that actually captured my imagination. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world of the carnivorous plants. There we go, the classic, the Venus flytrap. Now, by carnivorous plants, we're not talking man-eaters. There we go. We're not talking man-eaters. We are not talking the triffids. We are not talking the sarnacs. We are talking about ones that mainly eat insects. Occasionally, we've got some that will eat amphibians, and they are clearly a hyper-evolved form of the French. And we've also got some that will eat the odd mammal. But that's it. We're not talking anything huge. We're not talking anything quite like Audrey there. Now then, there are about 250,000 flowering plants in the world. How many carnivorous plants have we got? Well, about 630. And they derive their nutrients from eating animals. And I say nutrients, it's not about getting energy. They still have to photosynthesize just like any other plant. So, they're getting their nitrates, they're getting the potassium, they're getting the calcium from the other animals. So they've developed all manner of fiendish traps to get it. Now, why would you bother? The rest of the flowering plants in the world don't need to do this. Why would you? Well, if I introduce you to Mount Roraima. Mount Roraima is about 9,000 feet tall, in South America, and it is wetter than a sardine Speedos. This is one of the wettest places on Earth. Fantastic if you like really scenic waterfalls. But that entire top surface is so rainy that you've got water slushing around all over the place. There is next to no soil. Great for the waterfalls. Not so great if you are a plant that's looking for some nutrients. You've got nothing to grapple on. All those nutrients are cascading straight down the side of that mountain. Now then, but up there, because it's so terribly inhospitable, if you can manage with all of that deprivation and isolation, you've got the place to yourself. It's a lot like Zone 6. So, if we go to our next slide, please. Welcome to one of the plants that actually does manage to survive up here. This is a Heliomorpha. It's one of the pitcher plants. It's one of the most basic forms of fly catchers that there are. So you've got the long funnel, and you've got the hairs pointing downwards that are just here. Actually, if we go to the next slide, we might be able to show that. So this is a similar species. You've got the hairs pointing downwards. Very, very difficult to go down.
You're on the anus page again.
Not so difficult to get back up. Yeah, I've got a scientific heckle. Terrible. So, and at the bottom there, you've got a pool full of water, full of enzymes, full of bacteria there that do all of the digesting. Once a fly or something falls in the bottom there, it gets broken down, and then the nutrients are pulled in as a foliar feed, much like any other plant does. Most plants actually have the facility to absorb nutrients through their leaves as well. Now, it's not terribly clear how all of these plants actually evolved. Because they're herbaceous, they're very soft walled plants, not much of them actually survive in the fossil record. If we go to the next picture, this is an artist's interpretation of the one plant that they thought actually might have been a carnivorous one from a fossil record. About 2 inches high, they thought this was an early pitcher plant. But apparently the latest research is saying that perhaps not. It might be related to them, but not that closely. But what we can find out is by looking at the structure of how they are now. The pitcher plants, they think, by looking at the leaves, actually were originally a leaf that folded over. They can tell that from all of the vein structure that's going on. But some of them have become even more sophisticated than just folded leaves. What we have here is Sarracenia flava, and this one bribes insects with nectar. Lovely. But not just any nectar. This is nectar that is laced with alkaloid toxin, similar to the one found in hemlock. So little bumblebee comes along, has a little drink of that, and then falls straight on down on in. Next on up, very recent discovery. Found out that a lot of them actually are visible on the UV spectrum. So the insects are picking up on this, and this is also another lure on in, something that they have developed. Next one, please. Now this one is Brocchinia reducta, relative of the pineapple plant. It's a bromeliad, and like most bromeliads, they have a little pool of water there sitting in the middle. A lot of them, most of them, you'll find little frogs in there, little tadpoles, mosquito larvae. It's lovely, it's lovely. But this particular one has a pool of bacteria in the middle and very waxy sides. Anything that goes in there is not coming back out again. And I am imploring the management of Shoreditch House, if they could do the same thing with their swimming pool, we could wipe out an awful lot of wankers from around London. So far not really happened, but we live in hope. Next one, please. Then we have some of what we call the monkey cut plants, very similar to the pictures. And here we have Nepenthes attenboreae, named after, well, actually probably for Sir David Attenborough. If it was actually named after him, I'd be rather disappointed. But this particular one is so large that it's been known to catch rats. Next one up, we have Nepenthes lowii, that aside from a penchant for insects, also has a penchant for tree shrew poo. Try saying that after you've had a few drinks. So next on up, we have one of the group of the sundews, and how these work. They're very much like flypaper traps. You get some that are very passive, and then you get some that are more active, where you have these fine droplets here, and they will actually grow and roll their leaves as soon as something makes contact with it. And if we could bring up our video, please, Maestro. So this is a particular one that's actually not just got the stickiness, but it has also got a catapult trap built on in as well. Now those were all the sundews were, like most of the carnivorous plants, were believed to have evolved from very simple hair-covered leaves. As a plant was developing in these unusual habitats, the longer the hairs on the leaf, the more water that they would hold from the atmosphere, so that and as flies would land on that, they'd get caught in the surface tension, and then gradually the nutrients would be absorbed into the leaves of the plant. And a lot of the carnivorous plants are believed to have come from hairy leaves of one form or another. So if we go on to the next one, now this one actually isn't a carnivorous plant. This one's proto-carnivorous, in that it catches insects, but it doesn't actually bother eating them. What it has is a symbiotic relationship with a bug called the assassin bug. So it catches the food for the assassin bug comes along and eats it, and then it feasts on the assassin bug poo. Not a bad way to make a living. So, and then, of course, if we go on to the final one, of course we have the classic, the Venus flytrap. Now, how many of us would go along to home base when we were growing up and poke them, get all the little traps to close, and then wonder why they died off afterwards? Or actually bought one, took it home, and then got so terribly impatient and went running around the house trying to catch flies for it. Now, this is one of the most sophisticated of the traps. What we've got here, very fine sensory hairs, and there's a system that when something touches two of them, it has to be two separate responses between half a second and 30 seconds. It sends in the rib, you've got a whole bunch of cells, and those cells push all of the ions out of them, so that the trap actually closes on in. It's remarkably sophisticated in that, because of the system of needing two different stimulus to actually close it. That way rainwater actually won't do it. It does require, it's smart enough to figure out when it's actually a bug. Not only that, once the bug is inside, the more it struggles, the tighter it closes. It's also got that figured on out. It will digest its prey in 1 to 2 weeks, and it can actually reuse these traps about 3 to 4 times. And as I found out, actually they're not a big fan of Bernard Matthews turkey. I did try that as a child, it didn't go down terribly well, perhaps a little bit too rich for the Venus flytrap. So if we could have the second video please, Maestro. See it in action. I love Linux. Well, he's just being cocky now, he just deserves what's coming. Ah, there we go.
Oh, you're evil. You put
I actually didn't shoot this myself. Positively so. Well, there we go. I hope you found them as interesting as my 10-year-old self did, and I shall hand you back to Sabrina. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Neil. I was talking to Suk in the break, and I was just saying